I've been finding that every emotion is an invitation. And what
Mm.
when you're angry, you want other people to join you in your anger. And
Yes.
you either tell them what happened and you're like, "Yeah, wasn't that messed up?" And they're like, "Yeah, that was messed up." And they're like joining with you, or you're so angry you can't contain it within yourself and you just start being mean to people around you and you make them angry. The same thing happens with pleasant, happier emotions. Like you want people to share in your joy. You're like, "Look at this amazing joke. Look at this amazing tree that I just walked past." And we have to think to ourselves, what do we want to accept? Like, yes, we want the
Mm.
invitations to the more pleasant, sort of more joyful, beautiful emotions, but are we going to accept every invitation for a heavy emotion? Like, no,
Right.
I think that would just make it difficult for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, I love that thought. And as you were talking, I was like, wow, there's days you think, have we really lost our way with humanity? But then as I hear you talk, I'm like, wait, you're right. Like a lot more people are going into therapy. People are starting to have better self awareness. People are
I wish
buying.
I wish I could see studies about this because the numbers must be enormous. Like, have you ever
Mm,
seen a time like if you look back at history, like has there ever been a time where this many people were actively trying to heal their minds?
right.
You know,
Right.
like
Well,
that's like
yeah.
how many millions of people are taking therapy all over the world, like from here to Singapore. Like, you're as long as you live in
Maybe.
some major city, you're gonna find some type of yoga, some type of therapy, like something that's gonna help you cultivate yourself. And I think like when I look at the world and I see how chaotic it is, I remember that fact that more people are healing
Mm,
themselves than ever before. And I'm hoping that that can become the place where the future sort of societal structure will be, founded on is on his healing.
mm. Oh, I love that thought. So your ninth lesson is one that I think is really applicable to women going through menopause. And I
Mm.
also, well, actually, number nine and number 11 are really ones that I see happening to women going through menopause. So number 9 is having a fluid sense of identity,
Oh,
and
yeah.
number 11 is setting the space and aside is not selfish. So I'll fill you in a little bit on my new book is really how the brain changes when estrogen goes away. And one
Mhm.
of those changes is that you become less of a people pleaser. Your
Yeah.
brain is actually not as addicted to oxytocin and dopamine and pleasing everybody. And so there is this identity shift that's happening to women after 40. And yet I don't think we have a culture that says, "Hey, cool, you can change if you want to change," or we haven't set up relationships or marriages to be like, "Oh, wait, I met you, in your 20s, but in your 50s you should still be the same."
Oh,
And
yeah.
yet if you look at what happens to the menopausal brain, you absolutely are moving into a different person. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about what you mean about this fluid sense of identity? Let's start with that one.
I love how you came to that from a scientific point of view, and I came to that from, like, just sitting with my eyes closed, and I
Yep.
was like, like, it became so clear to me that if you think about the primary law of this universe is impermanence, and
Mm,
you can feel that crisply in the body. Like that's what we train
mhm,
ourselves to do in Vipassana is feel that truth of impermanence in the body. And this universe, whether it's at the cosmological level, at the atomic level, at the biochemical level, at the everyday level of human life, like everything is just constantly changing. And it feels like this gigantic river that is moving forward. It just moves
mhm.
forward. And if you fight that, it's gonna hurt. If you fight that
Yeah.
and you try to be static in that sort of ocean, in that
Mm,
river of the universe, you're just gonna get tossed around. So instead, embrace it, flow with it. And what does that mean for your sense of self? Like, that means your preferences are gonna change. That means that,
mm,
what you like, what you dislike, your perspectives on the world, the way that you look at things ideologically, politically, like you're just gonna be in constant motion because the human mind is also a sponge. It's constantly
mm.
absorbing everything around it. So trying to be the same all the time, it just I think in some ways, like, you're kinda lying to yourself if you really think, "This is who I am and this is who I always will be." No, you're just being really attached to one view of yourself, and if you really love your partner, I think that's one of the beautiful things about relationship is, like, my wife and I, we got together when she was 18 and I was 19,
Mhm.
and now she's, 36 and I'm 37, and we're, like, totally different people from who
Right.
we were
Yes.
back then, and it's kinda awesome. It's like, "Oh, like, who are you
Yeah.
now? Like,
Yeah.
what tell me about what you like and what you don't like because I can't read your mind and I wanna continue exploring with curiosity."
And that's that I need to find a better word, but that to me is an enlightened perspective.
Mm,
I don't think, especially in committed long-term relationships, I don't think we talk about this enough. I recently heard a podcast with Sarah Perel,
yeah,
and she talked about how in relationships in your throughout your lifetime, you are going to fall in love with 2 to 3 different people. And for some of us, that's going to be the same person in the same relationship. And for others, it's going to be 2 or 3 different people.
yeah, yeah, that's cool.
And when right, isn't that a cool concept? And then when you look at that, I look at the brain changes that happen to women as they go through menopause, and I look at statistics like women are killing themselves between
Mhm.
45 and 55, and more divorces are being initiated by women after 40. I feel like if we can get to the root of that issue, it's that there's not enough cultural conversation about you can change. You can
Yeah.
change. You don't have to keep those beliefs. So I
Uh,
and it does meditation do that? Like, I mean, how does that sort of free you to find new patterns of yourself?
I think that's this especially, these facts that you just pointed out, I feel like one of the roots of inner peace that I was able to build within myself is in the simple act of letting my identity fluctuate. Just like you
Mm,
just don't need to hang on to who you were before. You can allow yourself to change. You can, change what you like, what you don't like, and what your hobbies are and what you find interesting. And it's been such a freeing thing to
yeah.
just like, okay. And I've noticed that if you really care about your personal growth, then what you're basically doing is embracing your own evolution and activating it. So you better be
Mm,
ready to change, right? And that you're not going
yeah.
to stay the same person. Well, there's this one thing that my wife and I noticed after every long retreat that we do. We did a number of these 30-day and 45-day retreats, and
Wow.
after each one of them, we're meditating 45 days in total silence. We're not with each other. We're like, in separate rooms on the other sides of the meditation campus, and you're meditating 11 hours a day. And in these long meditation retreats, it's almost like you're taking yourself like a football and just throwing yourself down the field, and you're just flying into your evolution. You're just growing at
Wow.
incredibly rapid rates. And when you come out, like, you need to discover who you are again. Like, what are
Wow.
my preferences? And we not only do I need to find out what I like and what I don't like now, but we need to reconnect like who we are as partners. So, you're in the 45-day retreat, you usually have 2 days to talk at the very end to start like normalizing and extroverting. And in those 2 days, my wife and I are like, well, like, how are you? Like, how are you
Yeah.
doing? What's going on in your mind? Like, how's it been for you? What do you want life to be like this year? Like, what are you interested in? And it becomes like, I swear to you, it feels like I'm coming across her in a whole, like, I know we've entered totally different chapters. She's a whole new person. And it's just so beautiful because, like, the love is still there. And when we first started doing these retreats, we'd finish a retreat and be like, I love you. You still love me? Like,
Like you didn't
because
give
we're
up on me in
yeah,
45 days.
exactly. And we're both like, yeah, yeah, we're cool, we're cool. And then it's just joyful because it's like, let's find out who we are now
Mm.
together and how we're gonna, make our relationship as supportive of each other as possible.
How and that has to be more than just a 1 hour conversation. Is that something that
It's
gets done over
days,
days? Yeah.
days, days. It almost feels like, you do the 45-day retreat and it takes about 2 months for you to really kind of, you're like, "Oh, this is who I am now." Like, I don't care about that TV show anymore, or that
Wow.
last book I was reading was dumb. Like I'm gonna pick up something
Wow.
else and this makes way more sense. Or, the way I want to establish my relationships with people, or new friendships that I want to build, or new goals. And it's honestly pretty fun. And it's nice
Wow.
because you're doing it with a mind that is far less reactive. So
Yeah.
challenges are there, and it's so funny. I come out of a 45-day retreat, and all the agents and editors, they're all like
Yep.
trying to call, and I feel the tension in their voices, and they're like, you have to make decisions on this and that and this. And I'm like, it's fine, like we're fine, like let's take our
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. What's funny is I actually think the first time, I don't know, you reached out to me or I reached out to you, and I was trying to get you on the podcast, and it was a September, and maybe it was 2 years ago. I can't remember, but my staff came back to me and said he's meditating till the end of the year.
Yeah,
It's like, what? Wait, how come I don't say this? Why does he get to say this? They're like, yeah,
I
he can't
know.
come on the podcast because he's meditating till the end of the year.
I had this funny moment one time. I was one of the first times I was on the Today Show, and like right before we get on air, Hoda was like, Maria Shriver was trying to get a hold of you, and she said that you wrote her right before you went into retreat, and you were like, "I'll talk to you in 45 days." Like, who does that? I was like, "I'm sorry." Like, to me, that's like the most important thing to schedule in the year, and everything else can wait.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, so that leads to setting the time and space aside is not selfish. So
Yeah.
again, in the new book that I'm writing, I've been doing some research into Carol Gilligan's work. She is a feminist philosopher,
Mm.
and she wrote a book called In a Different Voice, which basically is her research in the 1980s of how the culture we live in taught women to be selfless. And
Yeah.
so when we go into relationships, we are great codependents. We're
Yeah.
really good caregivers. We're fabulous people pleasers, some of us more than others, but a lot of that has been the infection of the culture.
Yeah.
And for menopausal women, this is a struggle because as you become less addicted to oxytocin when your brain changes, you don't actually want to please people as much, which
Yeah.
is a challenge for relationships.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a little bit about how do you find space within the relationship where it's not threatening to the other person in the relationship?
I think it's just like one of the most critical things, because the way we think about it in our relationship is that the time that we put into ourselves is the best investment that you can make in your life. And
Mm,
meaning, like, with the times that I take to go meditate or go on retreat, or the times that she takes to, work on her health, to meditate, all those same things, like, because she's doing her best to take care of herself, like, that's where our joy comes from. The
yeah,
fact that we can even show up for each other, the fact that we, like, put such a big importance on, like, sleep is the big thing for us this year, is, like, we
yeah,
want to get way better at sleeping.
yeah,
And, like, we've been able to narrow down, like, what are the best diets. And it's funny because we have, like, totally opposite diets that are optimal for the both of us. We've been able to stabilize everything with meditating and building non-reaction and compassion, but we know that, like, this is time well spent. Like, I not only because I love you, do I want you to be healthy and happy, and sort of set yourself up for internal success, but that
mhm,
internal success that you build inside of yourself, that is directly coming from your self-care.
mm,
That's what creates the external success that we can enjoy with each other. So to me, it's
mm,
like, it's something that just cannot be overlooked. Like, take your time,
mm.
because that's why we're, like, loving life together.
So I find this very holistic because what most people do when they fall in love is that they become attached because they
Yeah.
feel so good. And then as that love grows, if there's any form of detachment from each other, then it becomes threatening to the relationship. So when I hear about you and your wife, like how well you care for each other in order to care for the relationship, how do we help the many of the women that follow this podcast that are like, this is great, but I can't get my spouse to see that my self growth and my evolution is actually a benefit to the relationship? Are there strategies that we can, or language we can use?
Yeah,
And it's not always spouse. Sometimes it's even friends. Sometimes it's family
totally.
members.
Roommates, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I think one of the main things, especially with whoever you are in proximity to, because like you're whoever you're in proximity to, you're in relationship with, whether it's an
Mm,
intimate relationship or a friend or a roommate, whatever, a family member. If you're close to them, they're going to see the best of you and they're going to see the worst of you.
mm,
So having a situation where your relationship is not based on attachments, but instead it's based on clear commitments. And I think that's just been a game changer. Like, where you let your partner know, like, what are your needs? Like, the fact that you do need space to be able to take care of yourself, because that's what helps you cultivate happiness in your own mind. And then they can enjoy from that happiness because we can have a better time together. But being really clear about like, what my needs are and you hear their needs, and then we bridge the two with our commitments. So it's like, oh, this is the
mm,
way I can support your happiness, or this seems a little outside of my range, I can't quite do that. and
mm,
and being very sort of, that clear communication, that honest communication between each other, I think it really is important. And I would say that people, like, if your partner loves you, they're not going to fight you about supporting your well-being.
mhm,
I think it's something that's just so, like, when I started meditating daily, my wife, she was too busy to meditate daily at that time because
mm,
she was working as a scientist. But even though that took a little bit of our time away from each other, like hanging out in the evening, she was so supportive.
mm.
And it was
Love that.
because she loved me. She knew that it was, like, good for me and good for us. And
Yep.
I think I find that there are a lot of partnerships that I've come across, like people and friends who, one person is very serious about therapy, or, they work with a psychiatrist and it's really helped them, or they meditate, and both partners don't need to be doing the same thing because
Mhm.
different minds need different tools. And as long as you respect that of each other, then you're going to have that harmony between you.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.